Hello, everyone. Welcome to Visibility Unlimited Spotlight, the video version of Visibility Unlimited, the podcast, hosted by myself, Leslie Short, and the Cavu Group. My guest for this episode is Elliott Connie. Now, I know you get tired of me saying, I'm so excited to have this conversation, but I am so excited to have this conversation with Elliott. Elliott, welcome.
Thank you.
So let me share with everyone who Elliott is and why I'm excited. Elliott is a psychotherapist. He's an author of several books, and you will be seeing a lot of him shortly. But he works with families and individuals and couples and workplace. And he focuses, well, on many things, but one of the main things we're going to speak today is mental health and mental health within the workplace and why Black and Brown employees may view mental health very different on certain topics and in the workplace. So, Elliott, my first question.
Yes.
Well, I guess one, share with everyone what does a psychotherapist does, because everyone may not know. So let's just start from the beginning. Let's go back.
First of all, you described me as a psychotherapist. I'm like the psychotherapist. Like I am a psychotherapy super nerd. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I have worked with tens and tens of thousands. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yes.
And I obsess about my work. Like this is like the thing I was put on this planet to do, and why I think I've had so much success in this field. And what a psychotherapist does is, the interchangeable term is counselor. So a psychotherapist is someone who does like talk therapy to counsel you through the challenges of life and help you deal with like the mental illnesses and the symptomology that comes along with those mental illnesses, so we can live better, happier, more profound lives, and where we can be like the best version of ourselves.
I love that. Thank you. And yes, I was wrong. I'm good. I can admit when I'm wrong. So then there's been so much lately conversations around mental health in the workplace. But there's also the conversation of, oh, well, we have wellness. So what's the difference between wellness and mental health?
Well, to be honest with you, I think the biggest difference between wellness and mental health is stigma. I think the reason why like companies and organizations and athletic teams and stuff like that, why they use mental wellness is because what we learned, if we say like this is about mental health, people don't want to appear crazy. And at their jobs, they don't want it. They don't want to be associated with mental illness because they're afraid they will be discriminated against and in some cases fired.
Right.
So the term mental wellness, you're able to be like, well, I'm just here for preventative purposes and I'm just here to kind of take care of myself. Whereas mental health sounds like there's something wrong with me and I'm here to get it fixed.
Right. But then here's the issue. Companies will say, we're handling mental illness. We're there now. It's like diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're there now. We've hired so many people. Here's a yoga class.
No, right? Yeah, but you're not there yet. In order to be there, like, so I just explained the difference between wellness and mental health is stigma. You have to work to destigmatize mental health. And what you should say to your staff is, if you go to get your depression, anxiety, whatever addressed, we will not discriminate against you. You should like reassure your employees. If you really want to take mental health seriously, then you have to make your employees feel safe and comfortable enough that they can go get their mental illnesses or their mental health addressed in a way that makes them feel safe and comfortable that they're not going to experience consequences from doing that.
Absolutely. And so that's part of the equity, which in companies that they have to invest in, and
right.
As well as inclusiveness.
Right.
So, but throwing a yoga class at it and like we're taking care of that. Now it could help, right? But that's not the core what you need to handle. And I love how you say you have to destigmatize this because words have meaning.
Right. And it's never really made sense to me. Like, I know because I consult with companies, I consult with professional athletic teams. Mental illness costs you money.
Yes.
So like if your company or your organization employs a mental health professional, that will save you money and increase productivity and increase work culture tenfold. I mean, 1,000-fold. I mean, it's so I think the work has to be about destigmatizing what we previously have been discriminatory against.
Right. And I think that comes into if your employee needs an hour or 45 minutes to go to that meeting, they should not be penalized because of that. It's
That's
the
true.
same if it's someone's going to AA. You know, I had someone that came to me that needed to go to an AA meeting and was terrified because the meeting has switched to times.
That's right.
And so he couldn't do it during his lunch where no one would know and had to come to me. And I said, "Oh, you're at a meeting? Okay, goodbye." And he kept saying, "No, no." But I'm like, "Okay, you're at a meeting. I'm good."
Right. Right. People have to know I have support of the leadership ahead of me. You know, I had a professional athlete, someone, if I said this person's name, most people would recognize him.
Right.
And he was telling me that he struggled with anxiety and his team can't know. Like, I don't want my coaches to know. And he was coming to me for treatment to overcome that anxiety.
Mhm.
But it's just like if you have a culture where your employees are afraid to tell you the things they're genuinely struggling with, something is broken.
Okay, I need you to say, I need to repeat that. Repeat that one more time because there's people, there's CEOs that are listening to this and managers that need to hear and understand that. One more time.
Right. It is so important that you have to understand if you have employees that are afraid to tell you what they are genuinely struggling with,
Mhm.
your organization is broken and needs to be fixed.
100%. And when I say that to them, like it can't always be, it's not a band-aid. It's not a fluff.
Well,
You have
but
to invest.
think about it in this context,
Mm.
because there is a correlation between your family and your company.
Right.
So people at your company are not your family. That's not what I'm saying, but they're both systems.
Mhm.
So if your children are afraid to tell you what is bothering them, something in your family is off. And everyone would agree with that. No one would argue that.
Right.
If I've got children that are being bullied and they're anxious,
Mhm.
someone's offering them drugs or alcohol, and they're afraid to tell their parents what they're dealing with, something in that family system is broken down. And the same thing is true in a company. If I have employees that are afraid of consequences to their job of coming and tell me what they're dealing with, something in my system is broken and needs to be addressed.
And here's the thing, once you find out, normally, not always, that something's broken in your family, you go to bat for them.
Right.
You fight for them, you stand up for them, you make the calls, you do whatever you need to do. Yet in a company, everyone's scared to take that step forward. And so all you're doing is putting band-aid saying, "Oh, well, I'll help you fix it," or "I won't fix it," or "Don't tell anyone," instead of saying, "We have issues here that we need to address to be able to help people be, as you said, the best that they can be."
And here's the thing. That's okay, by the way, because no one is perfect. So I have a company, I have a team, I'm sure that my employees are struggling with things.
Right.
And I check in, like, y'all good? Like, I have a friend, or sorry, I have an employee
Mhm.
who something's going on in her family. She was super stressed and she needed to fly to see her parents. And I asked her, "How are you getting there?" And she said, "Well, I booked a ticket on such and such airline." And I said, "Nope, I'm going to fly you first class so you can go see your family and relax."
Right.
Right? Like, we have to do those sorts of things to help people feel supported. And I didn't do that to like show off. I didn't do that to spoil her. I did that so she knew I supported her taking care of the stressor in her life. So you know what? When another stressor pops up, she's more likely to talk to me about it because she knows I don't consequence her. I didn't say something like, "Well, you make sure you're back by Monday at 9 a.m."
Who's
or
covering for you?
Exactly. I literally said, "Forget that plane ticket you booked. I'm going to book you a first class ticket and you can sort that out and go take care of your family. And when you come back, we'll be ready to go." And I'm very confident if something popped up in her life tomorrow, she would talk to me about it because I
Right.
handled it in a supportive way.
Absolutely. So there is something in one of my workshops that I've put in about collaboration. Everyone wants to, how do we collaborate? And there's one slide that I put in, instead of just always, when you're asking for help, why don't you ask how you are?
Yes.
You know, ask someone how are they? And someone said to me when I reached out to them during COVID, because their job was going crazy and I was hired to come help it. Before I said what's going on with whatever, I said, how are you? How's your mental health through this process?
Right.
And she said, "You're the only one that asked me that."
But you know what's crazy about that question, and I think like the beautiful thing about that question is we only ask it when it's COVID or when someone's crying or when. But we should ask. We should be asking that constantly. We should constantly be checking in. Like, you good? Like, you okay?
Right.
And is there anything that I can do? And sometimes you might need to do something significant, like let me help you get psychotherapy services. And other times, I'm just going to send you ice cream. But we need to, right. We need to be asking people when their face is smiling or frowning, because how are you communicates that I care about you beyond just an employee, and that matters. When one of your employees knows you care about them as a person, they will run through walls for you.
Absolutely.
And if your employee doesn't think you care about them as a person, they will run through walls to get away from you. So you have to think about, what kind of culture do I want to create?
Right. And it's not, I'm always like, and people have heard me say this 10,000 times, I'm all for a good glass of wine and a cupcake, but that does not help me. Now, like you said, one day it may help me. That's all.
Here's my thing, right? So Leslie, if you had a partner and you and your partner had a big old fight, a glass of wine and a cupcake is exactly what you need.
Right.
But if you got in a car accident and your car is totaled, maybe you have like a grief issue that you need to talk to a psychotherapist about. But either way, I need to check in with you. And you might say, I just need to go binge watch
whatever
Scandal with a tub of Breyer's ice cream and I'll be fine. And other times you might say, man, I just need to talk to somebody because something much deeper is bugging me. But your job as a leader of an entity, your job as a leader of a company is not just about pleasing shareholders. It's actually about creating a culture, because the culture pleases the shareholders.
Right. And
the better job I do to take care of my employees do a better job of taking care of the shareholders' needs.
And check on your strong folks, the one that always volunteers, is always running around, because something at some point, if you're volunteering for everything, something's not always right there too. That's my belief now. And we also need to, leadership is one thing. We need to move that through the managers, directors, positions as well. Because I said to someone today, just because someone did a great job and they got promoted to be a manager or a director doesn't mean that they know how to work with people, that they know how to actually see people for where they are in a good place and in a not so great place, and then know how to handle that. I think mental health is a great, it should be added on as part of those, I'm going to be a leader, manager, director position. How are you aware of mental health issues?
And anything about mental health issues is you don't know what people are struggling with. And most mental health issues happen in silence or in secret.
Right.
So the only way you can be aware is to have relationships with your team.
How about that part?
That's it. That's the only way. You have to have relationships with your team. So A, you can notice when something changes.
Right.
And B, the team feels safe to communicate with you.
100%.
The only way you could possibly know.
So let's turn this a little bit to Black and brown communities and employees. And I know that's 5 shows, but someone said to me, Leslie, I set up this whole thing, but none of my, Black or brown employees are taking advantage of it. And I said, well, part of it is cultural. Part of it, we show up to work. You don't talk about race. You don't talk about this. You don't talk about that. That's kind of old school.
We get fired if we do that. One of the reasons why mental health is such an important but almost secret issue in our culture is the higher up the ladder I go in terms of professional success, the less of me I see.
Yes.
And the harder it is. So if I'm at the C level of a corporation, I can't go to a meeting and say, yeah, so my doctor diagnosed me with depression last week and I'm now taking medication, because I now look flawed. Right. And once I look flawed, I'm much more likely to be removed from the C level. So we have this drive to like, I have to look the part and I have to be professional and I have to be like untouchable. And I think that that's a problem, but I think it's real. Like I think it is actually a real thing. If I go to the meeting and I say I was just diagnosed with anxiety, all of a sudden they're gonna be like, oh, we don't trust you with this project anymore, and we
Right.
can't let you handle that account, and we can't let you do this task. And before you know it, I'm demoted or fired or removed,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a problem. It's a real problem.
Yet everyone else is sitting talking about, oh, I gotta go. I have my therapist appointment is now.
Right.
And it's out in the open and everyone goes to therapy and it's all good.
That's right.
But I agree with you. The moment black or brown folks say, my therapist, oh,
Right.
what's wrong?
What is wrong? And all of a sudden you look flawed.
Yes.
And that's a problem.
And so again, and I'm asking you as we both work with corporations, how do we break that stigma?
Well, I think I would say twofold.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I would challenge white America or white culture, period, to check their biases about non-white cultures. Because it's like there are these things that happen in the corporate world, and there's no one targeted by this level of discrimination more than brown women.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things that they deal with, like tone policing and those sorts of things where it's like, I have to ask the system itself to examine how it treats brown people, in particularly brown women.
Right.
And I have to ask brown people to take mental health more seriously and to take mental health, like to own that it's just part of our existence as people. And all of us have mental health issues. All of us have to deal with these things. And we are doing ourselves a disservice about it. And we are enabling the system to do us a disservice by not saying, look, I have a psychotherapy appointment and so do you.
Right.
And it's okay. I can handle my job just fine, but I'm going through a divorce, or I'm having an issue with my oldest child, or whatever it might be.
Right.
It is okay. And we have to be able to have open conversations about that don't make us look vulnerable. In fact, it makes us look strong.
And I think that's the key point. It will make us look stronger.
Yes.
And if we keep trying to be superhuman through the process, you can't get mad when things keep getting thrown at you.
Yes.
Because you don't set your boundaries of who you are and what you need to move forward. And that's whether it's with pay or your mental health or your being walking through that space.
Absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I mean, it is very difficult. You know, it was funny. I was thinking about when I was a child. When I was in high school, we had this class that was about current events. And it was the coolest class because it didn't have a textbook. The class was so awesome. Our textbook was Time magazine. Every week, the professor would hand out that weekly thing, and we'd go through it. And one day, it was about like the anniversary of John F. Kennedy's assassination, whatever it was. But I'll never forget this. And our teacher was telling. So this is in 1993, right? So our teacher was telling us, like, one day when JFK's assassination happened, the whole country was watching television, and we saw Jack Ruby shoot Lee Harvey Oswald on live television. And me and my friends, you know, as 16-year-olds, we were like, what? That happened on live television? Holy cow, that's crazy. But now you fast forward to 2022, and I've seen more black men assassinated on camera, on Facebook and YouTube. That affects you. Like that totally affects you. And it's so pervasive in our society that I can't even get away from it. Like I literally I'll be on Facebook sending a message to one of my followers or to my best friend. And the next video is a video of somebody being assassinated on camera. Like that affects you. And it's okay to say, you know what? We have societal collective trauma. I don't know how you could be a black person in this world and not have some level of embodied trauma. In the field of psychotherapy, there's actually a study that says trauma lives in the body. And strangely enough, trauma is handed down genetically. So here in America, our culture has been through hundreds of years of violent trauma that has been handed down from our ancestors. Like that lives within us. And the evidence of that, do you remember the first time you ever were referred to by the N-word?
Yes.
I remember being a young kid and I heard it. I was like 8 or 9. And this other kid who was probably a little older, 10 or 11, referred to me in that way. And I had never heard that word before, but immediately knew this is bad. I immediately knew. How did I know that? Because it's in my body. Like that level of disdain and hate, it's in your body. And we have to release that. As a society, as a culture, we have to have a space to be like, I'm going to heal from this. Even though this might sound strange, but I'm going to heal from what my ancestors went through. Because it's been handed down genetically to us. And we have to be able to deal with those things. And I don't think our society, our culture takes those things seriously enough.
No, because it's dismissive.
Right.
Get over it. You know, and in black and white a lot, get over it. But when it comes to the Black culture, it is very much get over it. You know, someone said to me, oh, well, did everything affect you? And I just had to take a beat. I was like, you know, I'm Black, right? and I'm like, I've never felt like I needed to say I'm Black more than I have in the last 2 years because I thought it was a given. But really, it was so I'm accepted in the circle. So, we don't see that. Yes, it affects me. They're like, but you were speaking the next day. I said, because what I do for a living, I had to sit back and settle within myself how I would have these conversations.
That's right.
I woke up that morning, this is how I'm going to have it. I needed my time to be quiet and not allow any bias to the best of my ability of who I am creep through as I try to explain this to others that didn't look like me, feel like me, walk like me, or sound like me.
And they wouldn't understand. They would be like, so you went through that? You canceled a lecture you were doing? That doesn't make sense. And, you know, it's funny. Malcolm X had his house bombed. Like someone literally threw fire bombs through his house. Do you guys, you know what he did the next day? He went and did a lecture. And the first thing he did was he apologized because he was wearing clothes that smelled like smoke.
Right. Because you can't even take that.
Right. And I don't know about you, but if someone blew up my house, it would be hard for me to go to work the next day. But racism is such a one-way perspective that if it's hard for someone who doesn't experience it to understand it.
Now, I'm going to show up the next day. I'm going to tell you that. But I'm going to use my experience that everyone there will understand what it took for me to be there and why.
But that's exactly my point. Is like we almost have no choice but to show up the next day because they wouldn't understand why we're not. Because it's not something they've ever had to deal with.
Yeah. And in this time span and in this lifespan, especially, yes.
Exactly.
There's so much to unpack. There's so much to consider when we speak about mental health. Like everything, one size does not fit all.
No. And we all need it. Like obviously a lot of this conversation about like the Black and brown culture, but like no one gets through this life without scars. Right. No one gets through this life without wounds. And we all have a desire and in fact, in my opinion, a responsibility to get healing. And
yes, we went to Black and brown folks, but no, when we're speaking workplace, it's everybody.
Right, everybody. I mean,
everybody.
We all need healing. There's just no way to get through this life without experiencing some level. I mean, look at COVID. The world has experienced a global trauma experience.
Yes.
No one who has lived through this is untraumatized in one varied way or another. So you just can't get through this life without scars, battle wounds, injuries. I mean, it happens.
And just because you get through one way on this side and someone else doesn't make you any better, stronger, or weaker than the other person that took a different route to get there.
Exactly.
And, and that's always my point. Like, we're in the same boat, but we all have different paddles along this way, and we're taking different routes to get to the the utopia of happiness and peacefulness that I think most of us want in this lifetime. This is many different ways to get there.
That's absolutely true.
Can you share as we begin to wrap up? I don't want to wrap up with you. I want to stay on with you forever.
Love it.
Maybe again, just a couple points for not only leadership to think about, but for any employees to think about how to approach the conversation about mental health.
The key that I would give people, and I say this all the time, is be confident, be vulnerable, and be courageous. The reason confidence is important is I do think it's important to convey to if I'm going to express to my superiors or my boss or my employers, it is important for me to say, while I'm having a hard time with something, I'm still competent. You don't get to question my competence.
Right.
I'm having a human moment, but I'm competent. So be confident and let people know I'm human, but I'm good. Like, I just need a minute to catch my breath, to regroup, recalibrate, but you can depend on me because they're not connected. I think the other thing is be vulnerable. Like, let people know what you're going through. And I think the third thing is to be courageous. I don't think I've ever known anybody who confidently exposed their vulnerability and weren't pleased with the outcome of doing so. So those are the three things I would say. Be confident, be courageous, and be vulnerable.
And vulnerability is not weakness.
It is not. It requires strength.
Wow. Elliott, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me. I'm so excited for all that you have going on.
We got a lot.
You have a lot. Because if people are going to be calling me going, how do I find him? How do I get in touch with him? So how do people get in touch with you?
So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My handle is Elliott Speaks, ELLIOTT Speaks. And go to my website, man, ElliottConnie.com. 2 L's, 2 T's, ElliottConnie.com. And check me out. You'll find videos there, resources to help you deal with things. We constantly add more stuff. But go to ElliottConnie.com and check it all out.
Love it. Thank you so much again. For everyone listening and watching, you can watch us on the Cavu Group YouTube channel. And of course, you can listen to us on Visibility Unlimited at all of your podcast listening options. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.